The Empty Throne, Chapter 12. 12a. Paisley. Summer grew to a sweltering heat. It was rare to see anybody outside these days unless they were out in the water. The bay no longer had a crisp chill, but rather a slight cool to combat the increasing temperatures. Even the dark recesses of the caves grew with dank humidity. The buzz of insects and birdsong disappeared with the winds, leaving only the sizzling sounds of moisture evaporating as it hit the ground. This didn't stop us from enjoying the rest of our summer, however. Alira, Fenton, and I would often visit Ophelia and Raylan down at the bay for a swim. It was the local hotspot for many of the townsfolk. Fishing became the newest means of hunting, and grew into a lucrative sport in the community. Fenton could be found barehandedly scavenging for fish as Alira cheered him on from the shallows. Raylan took the sport much more seriously, with his spear hardened by Ignis power. Ophelia and I sat among the shallows with Alira, taking in as much cool water as we could. It was great to spend time with friends and cool down. "I bet I could catch more fish than the both of them with my hook, without even trying," Ophelia remarked. "Don't you think, Paisley?" I cast her a playful sideways glance, then over to the boys. "Raylan already has a lead on you by 2. I'll take that bet," I said, knowing it would get a rise out of her. Any comparison to her brother instantly brought out Ophelia's competitive side. "There are plenty of nutritious fruits and herbs available. Why must we kill the animals to survive?" Alira questioned. "'Cause," Fenton mumbled as he returned with a fish caught in his mouth. He swiped it out of his mouth and tossed it in the bucket behind us. "We'd wither and die on that stuff, even if the plants weren't dying now. A man needs meat to survive. Leaves just ain't meat. But I love how big your heart is," he finished, seeing the sour look starting on Alira's face. Raylan also decided to come join us, bringing with him his friend Rawl. Ophelia and Raylan were being temporarily fostered with Rawl and his family this summer, though he was just as much a foster as they were. Rawl washed ashore on the isle a few months ago without any memories. He looked to be around Raylan's age. The two of them, while not entirely similar, still had many features in common. Rawl's long curly hair was as dark as mulberries and skin as pale as milk, whereas Raylan's tight curls were darkest brown and cropped to his head. Raylan's light skin tone matched closer to his sister's creamy shade. Both boys stood about average height, but Rawl seemed a little taller due to his proper stature. They were all housed in the inner district with the sweet elvish family, the Gwithneys. Rawl checked the bucket for fish, comparing the number to his own. The 3 boys formed a friendship based on competition. One would always need to outdo the other in every facet of the day. Us girls watched as the boys conversed over the best ways to catch fish and the various techniques. Ophelia took quite a liking to Rawl and would often discuss him as if he were a lost puppy. Ophelia's infatuation instilled a budding jealousy inside me that started manifesting even newer unwanted emotional responses. I had finally gotten my blushing blooms under control, though now I had to worry about prickly barbs popping up. I imagine I must resemble a porcupine in that state. I attempted to control my breathing and focused on talking to Alira instead. That was always a sure way of changing directions. "How was your secret society meeting, Alira?" I teased. "I heard Grandfather has quite the collection of books. I would love to see that." Alira and I both shared a love of books, though her focus is more on reality, whereas mine is the opposite. I remember when we were living with Mother and would spend our evenings reading around the fire. Alira would always poke fun over my interest in delusional fantasies rather than that of informational text. I was always amazed that we were even related. "Oh, it was amazing," replied Alira. Her eyes reached back through her memories as she sighed and began recalling the various texts she had seen. Information on just about every science one could imagine was available. "Science?" Ophelia asked. turning to our conversation with interest. You joined a science cult group? I've heard of those, but I thought the old ways were looked down upon. What's wrong with science? Alira questioned Ophelia. It is merely the study of how things work. Should we not understand our world? Are we to remain ignorant and place our entire survival in the hands of the gods? Surely we must be educated enough to care for ourselves. I don't know, Alira. All I know is what Mother and Father said the sciences are taboo. The gods are watching to ensure they don't get out of hand, whatever that means, Ophelia finished. Well, I believe science is very important to society and the whole of Aether, Alira rebutted, clearly unhappy with the notion. Without it, we would not have physicians, builders, tools, or even the food we grow. Paisley wouldn't even be alive if not for the ephedra plant that saved her from the bee sting. I'm very thankful for that knowledge, Alira, I answered. I'll carry it with me at all times now, especially since working with Tara constantly. I can see the benefits of this knowledge, Ophelia responded. I would just urge caution. I do not know the details, other than science being regarded as unsafe. What you girls talking about? Fenton called out as he and the boys headed over. Not much, I responded, giving Ophelia a slight look of dismissal. If science was as dangerous as she made it out to be, and Grandfather's group had to meet in secret, I didn't want word getting out about our family's involvement. It doesn't look like you've had much luck with the fish today, boys, I jested. We may not strike it rich off our plunder, Raylan retorted, but at least we will eat tonight. We lazed about in the waters until the sun began to sink low in the sky. The air finally began cooling as many people began to pack up their belongings. The boys clearly were not ready to head back yet, and headed back toward the open water. Darkness was nearly upon us when a soft hum started to fill the air. It began as almost a whisper, then grew into a full melody all around. Alira and Ophelia had joined the boys out in the water, leaving me to my thoughts on the beach. I was never one to enjoy the water, and after Father's wreck, it felt even more dangerous to me. I looked out to find that we were the only 6 left in the bay. The melody soon grew to singing, and I found myself no longer content on the beach alone. Leaving the day's catch behind, I found my way over to the rest of my friends. They stood at the edge of the shallows, staring out towards the rocks. I didn't recognize the song, nor the voice singing it, and assumed it must be Ophelia. But as I approached, I found her motionless and transfixed like the rest. I took my place next to the others, looking for the source of the song in the sea. What are you looking at? I heard Alira ask. The 5 of us lifted a hand and pointed to the rocks in unison. A dark figure pulled itself from the waters and sat atop the rocks. Then a second, then a third. They were women of a sort, with scales covering their whole bodies and a long fish tail that replaced their legs. The song was coming from their mouths, though it seemed to be deep in the mind. Sweet little Mortalis on the land, come and join our party off the sand. The heat is too much for you to bear. Come enjoy this gift for all to share. The song was unmistakable, its melodious message urging us forward towards the water. The 4 of us waded forward, deeper and deeper until the bottom dropped beneath us, and we were forced to swim. Alira's voice left behind us, now only a slight buzzing in our ears. We swam out farther than I had ever gone before, usually too scared to take my feet off the ground. As we approached the rocks, we could see the women clearly. Their dark green and blue scales glowed slightly in the dim moonlight. They were too beautiful to describe, with their scales covering their entire bodies. Seaweed and other marine plant life clung to their bodies in a fashion similar to clothing. Their wild hair was a mixture of all the colors of the reflective waters around us. I lost count of the hues and focused instead on the beings before us. We now neared the rocks, and one by one began to ascend with the help of the beautiful singing women, who I knew to be Siren. A buzzing drew itself up in the back of my mind as I too reached out a hand for help up. A slight tug could be felt at my back, keeping me from climbing the rocks as the others. Come, little Magus, be free of your hold. The failing can't hear what our hearts yet unfold. Unclench your fingers, this rock you must climb. A wonder of nature is in store for your time. I did as I was bid, glancing back to find Alira pulling me away from the rock. Worry was written all over her face, but I knew we were in no danger. I could not understand why she did not feel the presence or hear the mind's word. We dipped under the water from the force of her desperate rescue. As we came up for air, I pulled her arm free of me and shook my head. Come, I said, in a voice calmer than should have been possible after just being plunged underwater. My eyes drifted back to the rock, where our friends stood waiting. Come, our friends said together, as they again reached down to lift us up. Alira hesitated a moment, pondering over what to do, then shifted her sight to the Siren and gave into the beckons. As the last of us were hoisted up, the music that surrounded us seemed to fade away, lifting the euphoria that surrounded our party. For a moment I panicked. Fear rose within me as I realized I was trapped on a rock out in the bay. Alira grabbed my hand and calmed me, knowing the extent of my fear of open water since Father's drowning. You are safe. We are all safe, she repeated, as the others also started to become restless. What are you doing out here? She asked, then immediately turned to the Siren. What did you do to them? The Siren began to sing again, but Alira only shook her head. I do not understand. I only hear screeching. The Siren lifted their talons, pointing directly at Ophelia. The song began in the mind, and Ophelia translated as they sang. Children of Aqua and air sirens be. We give aid where we can from the shallows of sea. The sun now beats down with its burning hot breath. Mortales stay indoors in fear of heat death. As the sun sinks low, we may now meet and present a gift to ease this heat. Please accept these stones to cool your cores, which allows Mortales to endure outdoors. The Siren offered up a bundle of seaweed containing several rocks of various colors. Ophelia pulled a random stone from the sack and flipped it back and forth between her fingers. Alira skeptically pulled a stone next, clearly hesitant to trust the Siren. We each took a turn thereafter picking a stone from the sack, leaving nothing but seaweed behind. The rocks were brightly colored bits of coral, which felt rough and porous to touch. The rocks were completely dry, as if they absorbed any water they came in contact with. Instantly, I felt a wave of cool air settle around my entire body. There was an ominous feeling I couldn't quite put my finger on, similar to crossing the tree line into a dense and mysterious forest. Alira clearly sensed the energies of the rocks as well, because she immediately pushed the stone back and shook her head. Using the stones may come at a cost, powered by souls that have been lost. Beware the words the dead have cast. We cannot change the unliving's past. There is a natural order to things, Alira said, as she dropped her stone on the ground with a mortified look upon her face. Come on, let us begin home. The words she spoke registered, but all thoughts were still on the Siren and their wishes. Use these stones or use them not. Just wear the stones when you feel hot. Accept these gifts which we bestow. The dark encroaches. It's time to go. Alira looked somewhat skeptical, but wasted no time in ushering everyone back out to the waters to return home. The song was over, but I could still feel a lingering desire to stay with the siren. Their advice was sound, however, and we were helpless to do as they bid. As we returned to the beach, the fog started to lift from each of us the closer we got. When finally we touched sand, all wits had returned, and Alira turned on us with heated opinion. "What in aether were you all thinking?" Alira questioned. "Siren are dangerous. You should not listen to anything they say. It is lucky that we escaped." "It seems they do not intend us any harm," I said, clutching the stone firmly in hand. "These stones give us a much-needed breeze in the blazing times." "Are not the sirens said to be friendly and give aid to those in need, Alira?" I asked. "I know," she said, "but I just don't trust it, especially with the connection to the dead. It just doesn't feel right." We walked back to the cove, avidly discussing the possibilities of the stones, except for Alira, who refrained from the excitement. I wondered at what it was behind her concerns. I, for one, was excited over the possibilities. We all tucked in for the evening at the inn, ready to head back home in the morning.